Money runs the world. It always has. Formerly, the United States government did well to ensure equal opportunity for all, in both financial and political pursuits. However, today, the promise of equal opportunity goes unkept. In 2010, the Supreme Court made a decision that definitively broke that promise. Since the Federal Elections Commission versus Citizens United case, corporations receive the same rights as individuals, and monetary donations are considered as speech. Because money is now interpreted as speech, any attempt to limit monetary donations to political campaigns is considered a violation of the First Amendment, which was coincidentally granted to corporations in the same decision. But if money runs the world, and money is considered speech, then what happens to the voices of those without money, or simply with less money? Chief Justice John Roberts Jr. states that there is no right more basic in our democracy than the right to participate in electing our political leaders. We have made clear that Congress may not regulate contributions simply to reduce the amount of money in politics or to restrict the political participation of some in order to enhance the relative influence of others. Does allowing infinite contributions from the wealthy not enhance their relative influence on elections? Even supporters of the ruling seem to acknowledge the consequences of this decision, arguing that the previous ban on corporate spending had muffled the voices that best represent the most significant parts of the economy. This implication, that the more significant an individual is economically should translate to more significance in politics, threatens the American model of representative democracy. American leaders are supposed to represent the will of the people, but since the Citizens United case, they only represent the will of the rich people. To argue against this is to ignore the facts. The upper class gets their way politically 90% of the time. This is a direct result of the growing wealth gap and the increased influence the Citizens United case granted to those with money to give. Since 2010, fewer than 200 people and their spouses have bankrolled nearly 60% of all Super PAC spending. In 2014 alone, the top 100 donors to Super PACs spent almost as much as all 4.7 million small donors combined. Justice Ruth Bader Ginsburg called it the worst decision of the current court, lamenting that if there was one decision I would overrule, it would be Citizens United. Prior to the Citizens United ruling, political donations were limited to $5,000 per person per candidate. This decision legalized political action committees, allowing massive sums of money to flow into the political process. Thomas and Catherine Steyer from FAR LLC donated $57,271,342 to Republican-backed political action committees. And the next four donors on the list contributed roughly $150 million combined. Political spending in presidential elections is up 26.8% since 2012. From a recent poll, around 70% of Americans agree that wealthy Americans have the best chance of influencing election outcomes and that Super PAC donations should be regulated. The theory of foot-in-the-door economics states that political donors win favor from the candidates they donate to. For example, 2016 saw the mining industry's second highest contribution total at almost $17.5 million. The coal mining industry provides the biggest source of campaign dollars within the mining industry and has supported Republicans in each of the past 13 election cycles. Politicians keep specific donors in mind due to their reliance on these funds, resulting in policy not influenced by public interest but by private financial interest. The wealth gap is a growing problem, exacerbated by the influence granted to the rich by the Citizens United case. As more and more politicians adhere to financial interests, the American people will be heard less and less. We propose an amendment that would eradicate super PACs and replace the election donation collection system with one that is more fair. The Fair Election Management Committee would be instated to finance government elections. Donations to this committee would be encouraged by tax write-offs, as a donation to this fund would be considered a charitable or civil donation. The committee divides election money equally among political candidates, allowing each candidate to have the same campaign budget and ultimately offer a fair election process. The FEMC would have a broadcasting channel to provide election information to the public. This system of charitable donations would ease financial strain caused by limiting political donations. Although this idea would promote election fairness, some might be opposed to donating to the mutual fund because they would rather sponsor a certain candidate or party rather than have their donation dispersed evenly. Another less drastic solution would be to apply the same limitations to private investments through super PACs as are applied to individuals. We propose that super PAC donations are limited to $5,000, the same as direct campaign donations, in order to prevent extremely wealthy people and corporations from basically buying the outcome of an election. We would do this by adding an amendment to the Constitution that places limits on third-party campaign financing. Along with placing limitations on donations, we would add a transparency clause that requires super PACs to release a list of donors. This allows anyone to know who is donating to any campaign and how much was given. If this proposal was passed, there would be a drop in total campaign donations. Although there would be less money, it would not only force politicians to campaign harder, it would balance the influence of the classes in elections.
Big business.
Another solution that would protect democracy is to amend the Constitution to overturn Citizens United and reinstate the Fairness Doctrine. Overturning Citizens United would reverse the decision that gave corporations human rights. Their money would not be protected by the First Amendment. Reinstating the Fairness Doctrine would mean that anyone who is in broadcasting had to present both sides of a political argument that was honest and balanced. This allows networks to avoid polarization to a single political party while providing for equal airtime and adequate representation for both parties. We propose to add an amendment that reinstates the Fairness Doctrine and eradicates super PACs from elections. This would get rid of the influence of big business in campaign donations, and we would lose the money acquired from big business. The reinstatement of the Fairness Doctrine would compensate for the loss of campaign funding by giving politicians an equal representation in media. The United States is facing a constitutional crisis unparalleled in history. The influence of money on elections takes away from the will of the average American. Our government was established on the principles of fairness and equal opportunity, and the advancement of all, but recent decisions in our Supreme Court have placed special opportunities in the hands of the wealthy and stripped the average American of their say in the political process. Overturning the Citizens United case is integral to restoring the democracy our founding fathers set forth several hundred years ago.